And I see that we are live on YouTube. President Paoli, whenever you're ready.
Great. I will call the June 23rd regular board meeting to order at 5 o'clock. And I'd like to read that we're authorized by the Governor's Emergency Executive Order issued on March 12, 2020, that the Fort Bragg Unified School District Board of Trustees will conduct Board of Education meetings via video conference until further notice. The meeting will be streamed live on the Fort Bragg Unified School District YouTube channel. Members of the public who wish to address the board during the board meeting are asked to please submit prior to the start of the meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the board meeting. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting. If you require translation service, please contact Renee Holes at the district office 72 hours in advance by phone 961-3504 or email. So are there any public participation on closed session agenda?
There is no public participation on closed session agenda items.
Okay. The board will now go into closed session to discuss items 2.1 through 2.4 on the agenda. Regarding item 2.1, anticipated litigation, the board will be proceeding under Government Code Section 54956.9D2 with respect to one matter involving a claim filed on behalf of a certificated employee who is asserting permanent status and the right to employment in 2021-22. So we'll proceed to adjourn to closed session.
Thank you.
reconvene to open session at 6 o'clock. And I'd like to read, as authorized by the Governor's Emergency Executive Order issued on March 12, 2020, the Fort Bragg Unified School District Board of Trustees will conduct Board of Education meetings via video conference until further notice. The meetings will be streamed live on Fort Bragg Unified School District YouTube channel. Members of the public who wish to address the board during the meeting are asked to please submit prior to the start of the meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the board meeting. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting. If you require translation services, please contact Renee Holes at the district office 72 hours in advance by phone or email. And we do like to share the vision and mission of our district. As well, every student receives engaging and challenging learning experiences to reach their greatest potential and thrive in a diverse global society. Mission is Fort Bragg Unified School District delivers exceptional, engaging, equitable, and collaborative learning opportunities to all students. And we do not have anything to report out at closed session, but we did not complete closed session of 2.4 Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Government Code 54957, title is Superintendent, and we'll reconvene at the end of our meeting. And 3.3, Approval of Agenda. Do we have anything that we need to pull? It was brought to my attention that I believe, and I'll ask Wendy Boyce, 10.1 may need to be moved to information and discussion because there is not a plan attached to this meeting.
Right. I requested that be put on the agenda in case we needed it because I needed to do some more research and it had to, if we were going to have to do it, I was going to need it on the agenda and I didn't want it to be past the agenda deadline. So after speaking with CDE, I don't believe we have to develop a whole new plan. So we can either pull it, move it to discussion, or leave it there and just table it once it comes up. But we do not need to do a plan.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Do you think this will need to be on the agenda each time? Or you don't think it'll be necessary? Because then we should just put it in information and discussion.
Right. No, I don't believe we will need to. I asked CDE about what I was planning to submit, which is two plans, a combination of plans that we had developed before, and they said it sounded like that was sufficient. So I'm going to submit that. If they send it back, then we'll probably have another 30 days to amend it, is all it will have to be. It will not have to be a whole separate plan.
Okay, thank you. So if I may have a motion to approve the agenda moving 10.1 to information and discussion.
I move we approve item 10.1, or excuse me, I move to approve the agenda moving item 10.1 to information and discussion.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Madison, thank you. So are there any objections? All in favor? Very good. So moved. To 3.4 is public participation of non-agenda items. Do we have any public comments?
We have no public comment on agenda items.
Okay, thank you. So our next item on the agenda is patriotic exercise by Trustee Mattson.
So I was trying to think about what I wanted to do for a patriotic exercise, and I always fall back on the Pledge of Allegiance, and I happened to be thumbing through a calendar for a vacation we're going to take, and it said June 22nd, 1942, Pledge of Allegiance adopted by Congress. So I decided to do a little looking around, and there's some interesting bullet points in a article written by the Institute of American History, and it doesn't take very long, so I'm just going to go through it real quickly. The words of the Pledge of Allegiance adopted by Congress on June 22nd, 1942 are familiar, but most Americans probably don't know the history of those words and the changes they have gone through over time. On September 9th, 1892, the pledge is introduced in the magazine The Youth's Companion as a part of a program to celebrate Columbus Day in schools across the country. These words were written by Francis Bellamy, a Baptist minister and Christian socialist, and read, "I pledge allegiance to my flag, to the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all," and was intended to be for any country, basically. On June 14th, 1923, the National Flag Conference, sponsored by the American Legion and the Daughters of the American Revolution, changes my flag to the flag of the United States of America, in part to ensure that recent immigrants had the U.S. flag in mind and not the flag of their nation of origin. Then on June 22nd, 1942, Congress formally recognizes the pledge and includes it in the Federal Flag Code. Then in December 22nd, 1942, Congress changes the official manner of delivery to placing the right hand over the heart. This is really interesting. The previous stance, the one-handed salute from the body, was too reminiscent of the Nazi salute and the Bellamy salute that had directed the right hand is extended gracefully, palm upward toward the flag. And then in June 1954, President Eisenhower approves the congressional resolution adding the words "under God" to the pledge. The Knights of Columbus and other groups, as well as Eisenhower himself, had lobbies for this change. And one thing I didn't see that I did see in another article was that in 1943, the Supreme Court ruled that no one should be forced to say the Pledge of Allegiance if they don't want to. So anyway, you know how it goes, and that's all I've got.
Thank you so much, Trustee Mattson.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is acknowledgments. And if Superintendent Walker may share the accomplishments and donations for our district.
Yes, so Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month is this month, and our California Department of Education encourages the annual recognition of June as LGBT Pride Month, and FBUSD, I know our acronym, FBUSD will recognize LGBTQ Pride Month. So we're doing both. So hats off to that. And then Independence Day, July 4th, 2021. It's a public holiday per California Education Code Section 37220 is the state holiday for our Independence Day for our country. So those are our two acknowledgements for this month. We had more acknowledgements last week at our regular board meeting on June 17th as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Number 6 is communications. Did anyone receive any emails or speak to any staff members between the 17th and today? So I think we all received the California School News, and they actually lay out the May Revise Revision webinar that some of us attended with line items of what is being proposed. And they do a nice job of explaining how, what decisions and what our mindset is going into this next budget year for us. And I also received a student update for our student rep update from Mrs. Titchenen. And it sounds like we won't have, they don't have the process complete for a student in August for our first meeting. If we want to have someone just appointed for that one meeting, we can, or we can wait for the process and have a regular student that will be the same student every month for the school year. So just wanted to inform you that was reported to me that they're looking for a student rep. So if you feel that we need someone in August, just email me and let me know, and I can try to contact.
And President Paoli, just to let you know, the ASB elections are a little bit different this year. Typically, they do them at the end of the year so that we begin for the following year. But because we didn't have as many students on campus as we had hoped, and because it was an abnormal school year, they're holding ASB elections at the start of the new year. I would just like to advocate that for the month of August that we do not have or appoint a student rep and allow the process to happen so that we don't influence that election.
I agree. I don't want to give them more work at the beginning of the year. Trustee Makala?
I did just remember, and I'll just share this, that a parent at the grocery store asked me about yearbooks from the high school because I hadn't gotten them yet. So I did call and ask. And yearbooks are not going to be finished until the end of July. So the school will notify people. And I think kids probably heard, but maybe all the parents didn't get the message. So anyway, they'll be getting, Becky knows more.
So I do know more. So just to remind folks, because I asked the same question, because one of the comments that I had was, how come the middle school's getting their yearbooks and the high school's not? The high school seniors actually voted to prolong the publication of the yearbook because they didn't know when they would be in school. So they voted to have the yearbook not come out until July so that the actual graduation and June activities could be memorialized in the yearbook. So those pictures will be in the yearbook, and that's why the yearbook won't be ready till the end of July, beginning of August. So it was purposeful. It was that decision was made last August, and I know our students don't remember what happened last week, but there was an actual vote. That vote was memorialized, and that's why that decision was made. So if folks are upset about it, this actually was discussed, planned, voted upon.
Oh, nobody was upset. She just wondered.
Great. Thank you for clarifying. And I have 2 students at the high school, and I believe all students got to vote, and maybe even parents. So it was definitely an intention of that. And I also spoke with Wendy regarding a budget issue and the EPA account. So I did have an ex parte communication with Wendy. So the next item on the agenda is public participation on agenda items. Do we have anything further?
We have no public participation, no public comments on agenda items.
Great. So not great, but thank you for checking. I like public communication. So 8.1 Superintendent Report. First item is update from Qka Architects.
So we have 4 people on your screen here today who aren't normally with us. And so I'd like to introduce them to you so you know who we have. So Dawn, if you could wave. Dawn is our wonderful project manager Dawn, could you just unmute and share a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Don Alameda, and I've worked with QK in the past for a Boonville job, and I've worked for a number of school districts. So I'm an architect and a project manager, and I'm used to doing kind of owner's reps sort of stuff. So I met with Barry today, and we're working on helping you guys and QK move projects forward. So I'm looking forward to working with all you guys. I'm going to be spending a lot of time on the coast, it seems like.
So Dawn is Barry's new favorite person. So we'll have Dawn join us at board meetings either every month for a 15-minute report or every other month, depending on what's happening. If there's news to report, we're going to ask Dawn to join and just give us a brief report on what's happening with construction. So for right now, he's here today as an introduction so that you can put a name to a face and know who we're going to be leaning on with QKA. There are 2 other people on the screen. We have Heather Emmons and Jim Thies. And Jim, I don't even know if I saying your last name wrong. I just know you as Jim.
Jim is the easiest, Becky. It's actually Tice.
Tice. Oh, yeah. That's close. Okay. So Heather and Jim both work for QKA. So today, part of this update from QKA is to show you a few things that have been discussed, to give you an overview, a preview of upcoming attractions of what you're going to be seeing. One of the things that we talked about was that the alternative education site, we're looking at that property in between the Diedrich Center and the high school, the grassy area there. And originally we thought that the footprint of the alternative site, the new site, would be so large that we would have to go into a 2-story building. We also thought, okay, we can get prefabricated buildings. This might be cheaper. Heather was able to walk that area and came back and said, I think we can do this all fully 1-story, which is wonderful for us if we can keep it to a 1-story building. So Heather, would you like us to start there? Tell me how you would like us to proceed.
Yeah. So what we've done is narrowed it down to 2 different options. We talked about how we want the alternate education students to feel like they have their own campus and their own identity, because they are just across the street from the high school, just north of the high school parking. So what we have now is very diagrammatic. I'm looking at all of the classrooms and square footages that we need and kind of an idea of 3 different buildings. So we're in no way locked in on this exact footprint. We're still developing the concept designs, but just looking at the site, there is quite a bit of space. So this is option 1. Thank you, Becky. We're looking at along Dana Street, having some frontage with the building you see there is going to be administration and student services kind of together. So that would be kind of the main attraction that you could see off of Dana Street. We could develop an entry. We looked at having a bus lane similar to what a lot of city bus stops look like, that just pulls off the main street. It sounds like right now not a lot of students use the bus, a lot come on foot, but if you're going to be building up to 250 students, it could be an alternate that we look at. And then just south of the Diedrich Center, there's the existing parking, and from what I've seen, we were able to get about 15 spots there. And then we can probably leave the rest to the Diedrich Center. There's another alternate where it could be leveled better and have new gravel, but maybe it's not necessary for this project to bring the new paving all the way around there. And right now there's just let's see. So the site itself for the campus, I talked about the student services and admin. In this option, we have the courts just north of the courtyard. And this is the same footprint from the court that they have now. So in this option, it's a bit more visible. And then there's sort of an L of classrooms that borders the rest of the site. And we left an opening there because we know that the students use some of the high school campus. So it's kind of closing itself off as its own thing, but it still has an opportunity to go between the campuses. I guess I can touch on option 2 next, and then if there's any comments or questions, we can go back and forth. So the only difference here with option 2 is it's kind of flipped more or less. One thought was this is going to offer a better windbreak potentially for the courts, and it's just a little different. So the main entry would be off of the parking rather than off of the street. And we would, that classroom wing that's along Dana Street, we would develop some kind of breezeway entry so it doesn't feel like a wall. And then the courts are just further closer to the Cypress Grove. But otherwise, it's pretty similar to the first one. We're able to fit all of the program on the site in this way and have a pretty big courtyard. So there'd be space to spill out onto the courtyard for projects and even outdoor dining and that kind of thing. I think that's most of it. So I guess what we're looking for is we're going to be working with Alt Ed as well to see what their opinions are, and we can narrow it down to one, and we'll just keep developing the actual design of the buildings as well.
Does anybody have any questions for Heather or for Jim? Diana?
Just wanted to know if there's a dollar amount to these two different versions. Is there any way to estimate what we're looking at, the difference of, or they're exactly the same cost, just a matter of maybe from your demo?
Jim, you might be able to correct me, but I think at this stage, because it's still so diagrammatic, usually we do a more intense cost estimate at schematic design when the floor plan is much more detailed. I think between these two, the site is about the same size. I don't think between these two there would be a huge cost difference. As far as, grading and demolishing, it's lucky that the site is pretty much empty other than the existing special ed is right in the corner. And maybe some of the cypress trees might have to go along the edge. So
I would agree with you that there's not a big cost differential evident between those two options. It's really how the spaces, how you use the spaces you're creating with those options. The good thing about this is that these single-story buildings are about the most efficient type of building you can build as far as the cost.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm a little.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just a little confused as to this. So this is off of Dana Street?
So Scott, do you know where the JD Center is?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the John Diedrich Center. Okay.
Right.
So here's Dana. This is the baseball field over here.
So it's to the north of the high school. Okay. I got
Yes, north of the high school. And here's the ag building down here. I don't know if you can see mine. So
Yep. Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
It takes a while to get situated. At least it did for me.
I was thinking of the current, Alted Noyo High School like that.
On Sanderson. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Trustee Mattson?
So I was, for some reason, under the impression that the old Dietrich Center was going to be demolished. It's going to remain?
So for right now, we are, I don't want to make any decisions on the Diedrich Center with all of you just yet. And the reason for that is we have the student services, the health services coming in the fall. And so one of the things that we want to look at is how can we maintain the Diedrich Center to provide a place to provide student health services from that board meeting room. So think about the board meeting room and the offices in the Diedrich Center. Mendocino Coast Clinics is going to be working with us in the fall to provide student health services from that building. So we've actually put in a letter of support for them to but to reallocate funds from one of their grants to help get medical staff into this building. So yes, Jerry.
So I seem to remember Barry talking about the excessive amount of maintenance that's required on that building. That was one of the things that I thought was pushing us to tear it down.
I'm working on that too, Jerry. I'm kind of looking at some other things of just talking to some community people. And Jerry, we may still demolish it. Please know that. But before we go into that mode, before I put in a vote or ask you to put in a vote on what we do at the Diedrich Center, I'm trying to gain some more information. So some of the things I'm looking at is, could we potentially get private donors to help us get the Diedrich Center back to a place where it can operate as a facility for our student health services. And doing that on a private donation dollar is 5 times cheaper than doing it through public money. So Diana, I don't know who you want to go first, if you want to facilitate the answering of questions, or if you'd like me to.
Well, I was just going to say that's good information, but it's really not. I don't think that's what QKA is helping us with. So that's good information to talk about the Dietrichs, or are they helping us? That's not part of this.
Not now. The Diedrich Center, what we've asked them to do is to not demolish it for right now.
Okay.
We don't have to make that decision right now.
Right.
And Jerry, you and I should have a conversation at some point to talk about if that's even possible.
Well, my question is, if the Dietrich Center went away, would this other campus slide over to its old location? So it would be part of this discussion. And why can't we use COVID money to fix the Dietrich Center if it's for health purposes?
So,
well,
and I'm waiting for Wendy to chime in. It's not really an appropriate use for COVID money. We wouldn't be able to justify it because it's a capital expense. And I believe I'm saying that correctly.
It's not only a capital expense, but I think it's probably beyond our COVID money also. Not with the other things that we're trying to do for our learning loss and for other mitigations. So I would think that would not be the best use. Plus, not to mention, it would be so far down the road that it would take too long. We would have to use the funds before that would ever happen. I mean, if we had a plan and an idea and we were ready to go, I'm still not even sure I could justify it. I'm rolling around in my brain right now, because that's how I look at those questions: is could we justify it? And I'm not sure we really could.
And Jerry, again, COVID money is public funds, so that goes into a whole nother hemisphere of costs. Over the next couple of months, what I'm hoping to do is to just get different people in to say, look, if we did this privately, how much would it cost and what are we really looking at? And if I have people come in and say, you know what, this is beyond repair, you need to just be done with it, then we'll be done with it. But I would like to hold on to it for at least one more year to see how we do with Mendocino Coast Clinics and Student Services, because I think this has huge potential for us to have, again, yeah, I know, not QKA, sorry. Yes, Diana.
Yeah, I'm trying not to be, I just want to keep us on task here because I want to be mindful of their time, but those are good conversations to have on a future meeting or under the budget.
And I'm not for or against it. I just was trying to get up to speed on it.
Clarity. Very good. Was there another board member that raised their hand? I'm sorry, you guys are very little. Trustee Babcock.
So I too, Jerry, was on that same thought. So I'm glad you asked that question. But my other question is the 8 classrooms the same for the 2-story building that we were told about before? It's the same number? Okay.
It's the same number of classrooms and the same size, because that was my first question too. Are we losing any square footage? Are we compromising any space? And what I like about this plan is that it keeps everything on the ground, which is always great. The classrooms are still, I want to say, Heather and Jim, was 966 square feet, something to that effect.
Yep, 960.
960 square foot per room. Some of the rooms will have, so these rooms on this particular sketch that you're seeing, they have little breakout rooms. Is that correct? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I clumped them in different ways. I think option 1 might show another option where there's 2 next to each other with the arrows between. So you could have folding partitions and it could become one large classroom. So we talked about doing that. You could do that up to with 4 classrooms. So you would get 2 larger classrooms. Yeah.
And so on this one, do you see how this arrow here this wall is a folding wall, so that these 2 classrooms can then be combined and have one big space. And that's the same with this. So the plan is that the alternative education site would have 4 classrooms that could collapse down to 2 to have big meeting room areas, because they wouldn't have necessarily, a place to put more folks. So that's where they could do presentations. We're also talking about like these small areas are the breakout rooms and the meeting areas. Was this storage right here, Heather and Jen?
Yeah, that's sort of a utility area. So there's restrooms there, janitors, storage, electrical, that kind of stuff.
And there's still breakout rooms over here and over here. Mm-hmm. And then we were also talking about some of the walls being like garage door roll-up walls, so that the classroom could come out into the walkway and having some alternative settings. So it's pretty exciting when we start talking about the possibilities for this space.
Yeah, I think the courtyard will get a lot of use. It'll have a lot of purpose. It won't be empty. The students will be using it for different reasons.
Can you put the other version up as well? The second? Perfect. It's amazing there's that much space between the parking lot at the high school and the Dietrich Center. It's amazing that there's, because now.
Yeah.
So the two main differences between these is it comes down to what do you want for your curbside appeal and where do you want the front of the school to be? So with the parking lot here on version 2, the student services and the admin points to the parking lot. So when you drive up and you park, you walk right into the admin building. This does create a nice barrier against the west winds that tend to come in, especially during baseball season like we've had. And that would provide a natural barrier and provide a really nice courtyard area for the school. The bus lane would be, the kids could get dropped off here. This would be a walkway, I believe. Is that correct, Heather?
Yeah,
so
that's
a walkway there so that the kids could just walk through into the campus here. The difference from the first version is that the admin building is facing the bus lane, so it has better curb appeal, not as long of a wind barrier for that quad. And then it means that the parking lot, when you park, you're parking and you're coming into the side of the admin, which is what's happening right now at Fort Bragg High School. When you park in the parking lot at Fort Bragg High School, you either look at the 100 building or the science building, the 200 building, and you walk to the left or the right to get to the admin building. So it just depends on what you want that curbside appeal to look like. I think both of these sketches are good. I could take either one. I have not shown these to Alt Ed yet, so I will be forwarding these two images to Connie and her team. It's just to give you an idea of what we're looking at for Alt Ed, because originally we said we were going to do a 2-story building. We don't need to do that anymore.
Very good. Any other questions for QKA? Vice President McElroy?
Real quick, on the other image, I didn't see those walls that open up to the 2 rooms. Do they not have that?
They will be there.
They will, okay.
Correct, Heather?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty interchangeable right now. The two classroom wings on both options we can switch them. We can bring them into this one.
Okay.
But we definitely want to have that possibility. And I think we would even move them from that option too, so that they're facing the courtyard. Right now, one of them was next to the court, the sport court, but we'd make sure that they're easily able to have outdoor class space as well.
Okay. Thank you. So then they'll come back after they've spoke with Alt Ed staff.
Yes. And we're not as close to getting this completely done as it would seem, but the sooner we make the decision on the model, then the sooner we can move into the next step. So I'll be sending this to Connie. Jim and Heather, how quickly would you need to know which one is the winner?
Well, I think, Becky, it might be beneficial to actually meet with them and hear their input, because as Heather said, there's components of each that can interchange with each other, and just to make sure that we're meeting their needs in the best way.
So I'm sorry.
I wouldn't want them to take these two options as choose one of them, because they can be massaged to give everybody the most of what they can get.
So I'm more concerned, and maybe I'm doing this incorrectly. I'm more concerned with the layout. I know that we can interchange the buildings, and I at least in this early stage, what is the priority for both of you in order for us to move forward? Is it the layout, or is it having the details and the nuances of the classroom features?
That's a good question. I think developing the buildings is definitely important, but the layout of the site really helps us develop even the landscaping design and everything around and the approach. So I would say, I don't know what your schedule is like in the summer, but probably don't want too many weeks to go by.
Okay. I'll ask Connie and invite her folks to a Google meeting. And the good news is there's not much variation between these two. It's not like this is going to be a big debate. It really is going to come down to curb appeal, and it's going to come down to where we want that admin building to be.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe within the next week or two would be ideal.
Okay, I'll get that started.
Okay.
I'm making a note right now. And then the other thing that I wanted QKA and Dawn to share with the board was just kind of a timeline of what's happening with Redwood, so that folks can be prepared on what's in the imminent future here. So Dawn, Heather, Jim, I don't know who'd like to give those goodies away.
I can kick it off. I met with Barry this morning, get a feel where the utilities need to be pulled back and capped and so on regarding removal of those modulars. Normally we bid it for about a month, but we're going to try to just accelerate it. It's a simple operation. So I'm hoping by next week to work with the district and get advertised for a public bid to remove those 5 modulars. If we do it for 2 weeks, we get a number. There's a 10-day protest period, and then after that we could award the contract. They usually have a few days or a week to get their insurance and their bonds together. So, we're pretty late in the summer already, so it's probably going to be pushing towards mid-August. But we're trying to accelerate it so we can do the majority, if not all of it, before. I believe you start school on the 23rd, I think, or 18th.
No, we start the 18th.
18th. Okay, so we may be bleeding into that a bit because we've got such a late start, but we're trying to make an effort to get it done before school starts. But that might be a little bit of a tall order at this point. So that's where we are with that one.
And then we're working to be right on the tail end of the demolition. We have, you may have heard that we are submitting the plans in 2 phases to DSA so that we can get DSA approval on the site work quickly. And it takes a little longer to process the buildings. And so the strategy is to get that approval for the site work so that right on the tail end of Dawn's getting the buildings off the site, we get the site work done, and then right after that, hopefully DSA will be in work with us to get the buildings going right on the tail end of the site being ready. So this fall is going to be exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Anything else that the board would like to ask Dawn, Jim, or Heather?
Does that have to come before the board? Do we have to can that even be on a special meeting in July, or that we'll just wait for our regular meeting on the 19th?
The award of the contract for demolition. It might be a good idea to do a special board meeting. But that's up to you guys.
Does that need to be approved by the board?
It depends on how. I don't know what your policies are and what you already have in place as far as how much you could award dollar wise before it needs to go to the board. Or they could probably just say give you the discretion to award it too. That's kind of between you and the board as far as what's been done in the past, or you might want to make a policy now. But it doesn't necessarily have to go to the board.
So we probably definitely want to review policy and see if that's something we need to plan for, because I know people's board members' schedules are all over the board in July. So we need to know sooner than later if we need
just so you know, we don't have a specific dollar amount over which the superintendent is permitted to. They just always have to be ratified at some point. So if you wanted to let Becky go ahead and approve the successful bid for that project, that can be done, and with the ratification in August.
Okay.
That's a perfect world there. Yeah, great.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Thank you so much for attending. It's nice to meet everyone.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Dawn.
Nice to
All
meet
right.
you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Great. So the next item on the superintendent report is maintenance and field report from Superintendent Walker.
So the maintenance of the fields is always a hot topic, and I wanted to just give you a brief update on what's happening. So Barry and his team have acquired new mole removal techniques, and so they're working on that. We are down by one groundskeeper right now since Tom Wilson retired, bless his soul. Right now, we've only been operating with 2 groundskeepers this full year because we had a hold on athletics. And just a shout out to the 2 gentlemen who've been keeping the grounds maintained. They've done a beautiful job. And then when track started and baseball started, softball started, they went furiously to work to make sure that they lined fields and they had everything ready to go. As we move into next year, I anticipate that we are going to need to fill that third position, that third groundskeeper position, especially since as of right now, we are going to a full bore return to athletics. So with that, that means much more upkeep and much more maintenance. As we move into the following year, we are still looking at our fields and the the mole and gopher removal really is one of the things that we need to try and figure out how to do that effectively so that our fields can be rehabilitated to some extent. So more on that will come in the following months. I do want to give you a good news update. The stadium committee through the Mendocino Coast Sports Foundation submitted a grant, and they did this with us a couple, I want to say back in December. Does everybody remember that? I think it was for, I don't remember the number, but their grant has been moved forward. They are now in the top 25% of priorities with the grant. So they're excited about that. We are probably going to have to hold a special meeting because I'm just now remembering this. They need a letter from us to support the grant efforts, and we couldn't get it on this agenda because this is a regular board meeting, so it requires 72 hours notice for the agenda, but we may have to hold a special board meeting within 24 hours so that we can get that letter to them. And it really is asking for like a lease back type of situation. And we looked at this before. We talked about this before COVID hit when they applied the first time for this grant. So there are a few things in it that you may have a question about. I am not completely comfortable with giving that authority without it being open, without a public discussion with all of you, because it's a 30-year lease back. Does that sound right, Wendy? Something to that effect. It's pretty lengthy.
Yeah, I don't remember the timing on it, but yeah.
So we have someone from the state coming to the stadium within the next couple of weeks here. So that letter is going to be needed. And we can do a special board meeting like at noon or in the morning, just so that you can have an opportunity to talk about it. We can bring the stadium folks in so you can ask them questions. But it is exciting that this potentially could happen. Yes, Diana.
So I remember at agenda setting, you mentioning, and maybe other board members aren't in the loop, but you're bringing this up because inside the stadium is a field during this item,
yes.
And that could turn into AstroTurf. So I think that's why you're bringing up the Mendocino Sports during the item. Okay.
Because Timberwolf Stadium is one of our fields, and this has the potential to change the maintenance of that field forever. So, so that's why I mentioned it here. So thank you.
And then the student that brought it before, that emailed me just as the board president, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but they were thinking since there were no sports going on, that was a perfect opportunity to address the gopher issues. But clearly with two maintenance staff, it's difficult. And they also wanted to know about hiring outside, and if you could just address that. But we will probably have a bigger or a better or a more thorough report with Barry Silva maybe in the spring, and so that those folks can ask their questions. But I just wanted to bring that.
I'll have Barry do a thorough report in August so that you can look at the trajectory for the year. The difficulty with hiring for an outside source is that we're public money, so that goes to bid. That has to be a special project. We have to be able to talk about that. You have to be able to approve that as a board. And then I have no idea what that would even come in at. When we looked at rehabilitating the fields through the city had that, I don't even remember who the company was that came in and did that work. It started with a V. I don't remember. But the plan that they had to rehabilitate all of the fields in Fort Bragg Unified was a $14 million plan. That's a whole another kettle of fish. So the difficulty right now is that we are trying to shore up the fields and make them work on a bare bones budget. We are using the TOT money from the city that they've graciously set aside 25% of that TOT for us to be able to address some things with the field. So we bought the new equipment so that we could manage the fields more efficiently and get the grass mowed, and then work on aerating the fields on our own. So we are doing that. The next stage with the TOT is we're looking at getting more water storage for Dana Gray so that we can water that grass more. Because in order to get a better field, we need to have grass that's actually alive. So we're looking at that as the next part of the TOT, is using that TOT money to bring in water storage so that we can actually water that field a little bit more. We do have a well, so we aren't taking city water. We're taking the water from our own well. So I want folks to know that too, especially because we are in a severe drought. So we're trying to be cognizant of that as well and not water our fields as much. So for right now, we'll have Barry give a more thorough report in August. We will more than likely need to fill that third grounds position. We continue to address the moles and gophers in the fields, and we are using the current equipment that we were able to purchase through the city to mow and aerate the fields.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move to the next item? So the next item is fall reopening 2021-22. If there are any updates?
So just basically, I wanted to tell you again, reiterate from the last meeting that we are planning for a full return. Students returning 5 days a week, full days. Redwood would be from 8:25 to 2:30. Dana Gray, with the time change that we had proposed at, I believe it was the May meeting, will be from 8:50 to 3:15. The middle school will be from 8:30 to 3 o'clock, and the high school will be 8:05 to 3:20. Some folks have asked me, hey, Becky, we saw that the legislature passed that high schools can't start any earlier than 8:30. We are exempt from that because we're in a rural area. It is something that we could discuss. If you want to have the high school not start until 8:30, it's absolutely something we can do. Everyone just needs to remember that if we delay school by 25 minutes, then we have to end school by that same 25 minutes. So instead of ending school at 3:20, we would end school at 3:45, which is fine. It just backs up practices, it backs up after school help. And that's the hard part with us. Because of our rural location, our kids travel to very far and distant places for games. And then we have people say, well, come on, Becky, that's just a small portion of the kids. No, 60% of our kids participate in one sport or another. That's a huge amount of children for our high school. That's a huge percentage. So that impacts a lot of kiddos. So the question becomes, if we want the 25 minutes to be moved on the high school, that's the impact of it. So for the fall reopening, we are planning right now, 8:05 is the start time for the high school. Alt Ed starts at 8:45, middle school starts at 8:30, Dana Gray at 8:50, Redwood at 8:25. 5 days a week, full return. We will have the school calendar on the website by July 1. That will include all of the early release days, all of the marking periods. So we're working on that right now. We have the school calendar up on our website right now with all the holidays, because that's really what parents want to know, is when we can take our vacations. So that is up and available. The early release days, like I said, the marking periods, those will be coming soon. It'll probably be before July 1, but that's just a conservative date. And Randy's smiling. Of course, it'll be before July 1. So for the fall reopening, like I said, full return. That's what we're planning at this point. The masking question continues to get asked of me. And I continue to say we are following CDPH, the California Department of Public Health, and Cal OSHA guidelines, which requires us right now to maintain masking. We are in a K-12 situation. I understand that the masking order right now dictates that if you are vaccinated, you don't have to mask. The hard part about our schools is that vaccines are only available for grades 12 and up, which means none of our kiddos who are younger than 12 are vaccinated. It's not available right now. So that's part of the reason why the masking order is maintained, and we can't ask. And I'm not about to go through this. None of us want to go through this part of asking for vaccine cards and shaming kids if they don't have a vaccine. That's not their decision. That's their parents' decision. So that's where we're at. Masking order, we're going to still maintain our cleaning procedures. Cal OSHA released new guidance on what an outbreak is. It's no longer 3, now it's 20. Full return, full kids. We're excited. Diana.
Just one question. The masking is for indoors and outdoor at this point?
So yes and no. So Yes, on the indoors for sure. The outdoor, I want to wait until we get closer. Right now, we are maintaining the masking order all the way around, even for summer school. It's just too soon. I don't want anyone to feel that we're putting anybody at risk. There is some guidance that says that masks are no longer necessary anytime outdoors. But we're all waiting for CDPH to provide the K-12 guidance. So believe it or not, I know you will be shocked. That was supposed to be out 2 days ago, but still not out. So we're just waiting.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other board members that have a question? Looks like Trustee Babcock and then Trustee Snyder.
I'm sorry, I was looking at start times and stuff, but is fall sports starting like they used to before school starts in August and all that kind of stuff too?
That's what we're planning. And it's really up to the coaches. So the coaches right now are working with kids to get their athletic clearance. And that's the other piece. So we're working to get the athletic clearance. We're working to get to make sure that kids are ready to go. Coaches are trying to look for the CIF guidance on this. Who needs to mask, who doesn't need to mask. I can't imagine the soccer team running up and down the field trying to train with a mask on. That's brutal. So I think that's why everyone's just kind of holding off for a couple of weeks, and they're giving us a little patience, hoping that this guidance comes out quickly, sooner than later, so that we know how to operate. The other key question is going to be is if our public health officer wants us to do a new protocol or continue with our protocol. But our protocol rested on the tier system. So do they want us to test athletes every week? Well, we were supposed to test athletes if we were in the red tier. Well, there's no more tiers. And we didn't have to test athletes when we were in the yellow and orange tier. We don't have any more tiers. So we're waiting for that guidance as well.
Trustee Snyder?
So I wasn't going to bring this up, but Becky brought it up, the high school start time. I know the reasons why we shouldn't do it and all the effects it'll have of later driving times and all that. Question is, and I know coaches change from year to year, but has there ever been any informal polling as to how greatly would it affect if kids got home 25 minutes later or had to miss 25 more minutes of school in the middle of the day? My thought is, yes, 60% of the kids are in sports, but how many of those sports actually require them to leave class early? And is that more of an effect than having 100% of the kids be able to start later 100% of the days?
It's a great question. I mean, I have to tell you, my husband, I told you all this. My husband's like, I love this 9 a.m. start time, Becky. Can you make that happen? I'm happy to look at an informal poll. We can look at that before the start of school. We would need to hold a special meeting to get that to move before August 18th, before we start.
Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting any big.
No. I know, but I'm throwing it out there that's something we could look at. And also remember that with us, because we're such a small district, the reason why rural districts are exempt from that rule is because it impacts everything. Meaning, let's pretend the high school does get out at 3:45. That means that the Redwood kids who get on the bus at 2:30, they're not even leaving town until the high school kids get picked up at 3:45. So it delays a whole bunch of things because we have one bus route. Diana.
So I just want to keep us on task here because it's not really on the agenda. I'm sorry, but this has come before the board. I think it was obviously pre-COVID, and there was a survey and there was even public input on it. So it's definitely something we can talk about maybe at an agenda setting if that's something we want to address, later on the agenda so people can comment.
For the fall reopening, we are going full students, full time with the start times that were voted upon in May.
Any other questions regarding fall? Okay, thank you very much for your report. And we have 8.2. Do we have a CSEA report this evening?
No. Okay. Renee, do you have anything? I don't know. And we have nothing from FBDTA as well.
Okay. No. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is approval of agenda consent items. But since we had a meeting last week, we do not actually have any items. Normally, this is where we would put non-controversial items that pass within one motion, but we do not have any. So we wanted to keep it as a placeholder and to let you know we didn't forget. There really is nothing to approve. And the next items on the agenda are the board action items, and we're starting right into 10.2, which is the Memorandum of Understanding for California Agricultural Teacher Induction Program. And presenting will be Superintendent Walker.
So this is a different induction program than what our regular classroom teachers go to. This is specifically geared towards agriculture teachers. And so Megan Tunzi brought this to our attention and really encouraged us to look at this. We have 2 new ag teachers. We are tripling our agriculture force here in Fort Bragg Unified. We're going from 1 to 3. And so what's good about this is I think that it acutely targets our agriculture teachers, and I think it provides a wonderful program for them. So in order to be able to do this, there is a memorandum of understanding. You have it in your board packet. I'm happy to share my screen if you'd like. It's boilerplate MOU language. I'm not concerned about any of it. There is a cost that comes with this. I don't believe it's anything significantly greater than what we would pay if they were in the BITSA program through Sonoma County Office of Education.
So this is a new liaison agreement that's tried and true. I mean, this school district has been providing these services for some time, and it's been reviewed by someone's legal department.
I have not sent this MOU to legal to review, no.
Okay. Vice President Makala?
Yeah, quick question. Are the 2 teachers, do they already currently hold traditional teaching credentials?
They just completed their ag credentials, so they're fully credentialed. They're not PIPs or STIPs.
Yeah, okay. It just seemed, I was going to say, if they weren't, this would be particularly good, but just because it's more targeted.
Well, what I appreciate about this is that it helps build an agriculture cohort for our team. So that's why when Megan showed this to me, and it's in Davis. Davis is probably one of the largest agriculture communities in our state. And so I really appreciate the fact that this is happening from a school district that has been doing this. It's a large agriculture community, and then it allows our agriculture teachers to build a stronger cohort.
And they're able to commit the time that's necessary to build this?
Well, they have to commit the time regardless. They're either going to do it in this program or they're going to do it in BITSA. There's no way around it. They're going to have to be in an induction program. It's just a matter of where and when. So if I'm an agriculture teacher and I have to choose between the Sonoma County Office of Ed that's going to put me in with high school math teachers, middle school PE teachers, first grade teachers, kindergarten teachers, I would choose this over that because I'm in an agricultural community and this will only be for agriculture teachers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's clear. Thank you. Vice President Makala? Sorry,
another question. Will they have to travel once we're not having to do things virtually?
I would assume at some point they may. Most of it right now is being done virtually, but there will probably be times when they will have to travel.
Okay. And it's a 2-year program, just like the other?
It is.
Okay. I thought so. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? So these are funds used, these are grant funds. This isn't general fund dollars, it's paying for this program that's required.
So this MOU is only for 1 year. The induction program is a 2-year program, but this MOU is for 1 year.
Okay.
I was just looking at the date again.
Is there a motion to approve or any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve item number 10.2, Memorandum of Understanding for California Agricultural Teachers Induction Program.
Is there a second? Trustee
I'll second.
Trustee Babcock, did you have a comment or are you going to make the motion? Okay, thank you. So the second was by Trustee Snyder. Roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
and President Paley.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. 10.3 is the next item on the action budget for 2021-22. We have Wendy Boyce to present.
Yes. So we went through the budget at the public hearing last week. Not very much changed. There were a few little tweaks that were made into the numbers. This is actually the official packet, along with some things, supplemental things that I added for you that are in here. A couple of interesting notes. One of the graphs I have in there talks about the restricted versus unrestricted revenues piece. And because of all the COVID relief money that we've received, our unrestricted to restricted is generally around 80-20. This brings it to 74-26. So there's a fairly significant change in that. And then there are some other expense breakdowns for you to kind of take a look at and see what the trends are. And for the salaries and benefits compared to revenues, you can see that again, for 21-22, that number drops quite a bit because of all the one-time COVID money that's in there. And then as that goes away, you can see we get back more towards an 86 to 88% cost. And then there's a couple of pages where I did a real brief summary of the revenues and expenses for the general fund for 21-22. It really is just a synopsis of what's in the packet. And as I mentioned last week, we have all of our statutory changes in there. We have the provisions of the governor's May revise in there. There are some of the coronavirus relief funds, but not all of them, because I don't believe we will receive all of them in this coming year. And we certainly won't be spending all of them in this coming year. So I put what I thought we reasonably could expect to receive. There is some anticipated use and carryover of those funds that's in there. We also have included, this is coming into the final step of reaching our $15 minimum wage agreement. So that's done, we're there. And then it also includes all other salary changes per the agreements that we've made recently that you ratified last week. We don't have some of the coronavirus spending in here. We don't have any of the final adopted state budget impacts. We're not anticipating huge differences, but there may be some smaller things, and those will be presented probably at first interim unless they're major, which I don't expect. We don't have the final SELPA budget yet for special ed, but I expect to have that fairly soon too. And again, we'll adjust the budget at first interim to make account for that. And then all of the state programs that we really don't know what they're going to look at, universal TK, preschool, and all the other things we talked about last week. And then, we are still looking at, there's a chart of employer costs before health and welfare. We're going to have statutory cost increases. We reached the $15 minimum wage. Step and column increases are going to be about 3% per year. Health insurance costs are going to be a minimum of 3% per the JPA bylaws. And you can see the statutory costs. So for 21-22, certificated is 22.42%. So for every $100 in certificated wages, we pay another $22.42 in statutory costs. Mm-hmm. For classified, that number is 34.61. Mm-hmm. So it really does impact the budget moving forward. And the other things we talked about these last week too, but I put them in the final adoption packet. The specter of inflation, which may or may not continue. There's a lot of disagreement about whether or not we're heading into or out of that kind of time. The uncertainty of actual costs with a return to full-time in-person instruction. We had an anomaly of a year as far as our utilities, as far as things, some of our staffing and other materials and supplies. So there's a little uncertainty there. I tried to build in as much as I could anticipate. And then we're just going to have to keep monitoring the costs and efficacy of some of these programs we're starting with one-time funds to see if there are things we want to carry over. And that'll be, discussions for really future years. We'll see how they do. And then there were some graphs of breakdowns of revenues and costs that came out of the financial system for you to take a look at. And then there are the criterion standards and all of the funds. And then at the end is our multi-year that you also saw last week. So I don't know if you have specific questions or anything else you want me to go over. We've had a pretty good look at this. So,
any questions from board members? So I just had a couple of questions. You did say that the unemployment insurance increased, and it's substantial. I think it's 2,788.5% increase.
Yes, it went from 0.05% to 1.23%. Huge. And that's one of the things that the legislature is requesting the governor consider is paying that for us, essentially, so that we don't see that huge hit. Some experts are saying that we should, if it stays, that we should gradually reduce it and not go all the way back in 1 year. But we'll see what happens with the state budget. Hopefully by the middle of next week.
Okay, and that's because that cost increase is just from what you projected and what was actually spent. That's what the difference is. And will that be the same for next year, or that's just this snapshot for this year?
Well, that's what they're saying. For this year, it's going to be that 1.23% is what we've worked into it. The out year, at the moment, I have it coming down some, but not all the way, because that's been the guidance we received from financial people who do nothing but this.
Okay. And will we be required to have two different budgets to show, like, one including one-time money and one not? I mean, just for an exercise for our district?
We're not required to. I thought over the summer, for the next few weeks, I would try to put something together for you to see. We just didn't really have time to kind of pull all those things out because we were still juggling what was going to go where. So I didn't have time to put together a clean version of that, but I am working on something to have for you in August.
Okay, so that'll help us understand why the ending balances are large, because a lot of this COVID money is included in this, but it's not.
There is quite a bit of carryover there, yes. And there is some additional carryover because of the reduced costs of 2021 from the savings in utilities and savings in transportation costs and things like that. So we'll, now we start closing the books, and we'll do our unaudited actuals, and we'll see where we really are. But with all the uncertainty, I'm glad we have a little extra cushion there, because it could be, if we have any surprises, we'll be able to handle them just fine.
And then in August or later in the fall, we'll be addressing the next, you'll be keeping us posted on as COVID money comes in and we have to make decisions on.
Yes.
Projected.
Absolutely.
Okay. So are there any public comments? If we can just check before I ask for either more questions or clarifying questions or a motion for the budget for 2021-22?
There's no public comment.
No.
Sorry.
Thank you. So board members, questions or a motion?
I'll go ahead and move to approve item 10.3, the budget for 2021-22.
And a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Snyder, thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Makla,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
and President Paoli.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And the next item is 10.4, the 2021-22 Local Control and Accountability Plan, which we did have the public hearing last week. And have there been any, is there any public comment or any proposed changes or changes that you'd like to address, Superintendent Walker, or is it Wendy Boyce that's presenting? Because
it's me. So we made the minor modifications from college and career to career and college, minus the goal. We didn't change that because that's in all of our site plans that were approved. So we didn't change the goal, but we did change that minor nuance throughout the plan and then addressed what you requested prior to the public hearing in our story. And other than that, the plan is the same.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from the board?
And there's no public comment on it as well.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you for holding the stakeholder meetings and getting some good input from families directly and making some, that it's reflected in this proposed plan. And I think that it's a good comprehensive planning tool so that you can address the accelerated learning. And so I'm hoping that this mitigates, even if kids had support at home and had great internet connection and teachers were connecting with kids, we still had half instruction time. So I'm hoping that this plan is comprehensive and is able to assist students and teachers. So this can be, my only question that I have is, as this plan goes on, it can be amended to include, I guess there are some COVID dollars in here so that this will stay true to our plan for next year. But if we find we need some sort of other position to assist with the learning acceleration, that can be addressed through the COVID dollars and not through the LCAP. That's my only question.
So the LCAP is your plan, and because many of the mitigations we're trying are using COVID dollars to start with, and like I said with the budget, we're going to look at them. We're going to look at the efficacy. We're going to look at the results, and if they are helping those results, then in somewhere during the 3 years of this plan, we will see, do we want to continue these after the COVID dollars are gone, and then see which resources we have where A, they will fit, and B, where we can afford them.
Okay.
And the nice thing is some of the coronavirus relief funds have taken some pressure off of some of the other resources. So we may be able to have some carryover of some of those other resources to help us do that if they do turn out to be successful programs.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no other questions from the board, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve item 10.4, the 2021-22 LCAP.
And a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Snyder, thank you. Roll call, please.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Hey, Diana, can we take 5, please? 5-minute break?
Yes.
Cool.
Very good. So yeah, is there a second? He made the motion. Anyone object? We'll take a 5-minute break. on the agenda, 10.5, Resolution 2107, Education Protection Account. Presenting is Wendy Boyce.
So this is an annual resolution that we do, basically asserting that we are correctly using our EPA monies. This was a voter acted or voter proposition that set aside a certain amount of money. Education Protection Account is what EPA stands for. And because the law still exists, even though it's been rolled into our local control funding formula, we still are required to assert that we are not using this portion of the funds for anything we're not supposed to. Mostly the intention was to maintain salaries and benefits for education staff other than administrators. So this is basically asserting that President Paoli asked me to put together a little summary of the dollars, which we included there also. So you can see how much we receive. We estimated that we'll be receiving about $2.2 million of our local control funding formula is sourced from this EPA. And so, like I said, this is just an annual resolution that says that the budget you just approved includes proper allocation of these monies, and they do.
Okay. And so that's why the amount never really varies from year to year.
It varies from year to year, but what we do with it doesn't. And this resolution more states that we acknowledge receiving it, it explains what it is, and that we are using it appropriately. That portion of the local control funding formula appropriately.
Okay. We normally read this, have the vice president read it. What are our feelings this evening? Do you want to read just the second page or do you want to, was that a thorough enough background from our CBO? Any questions?
It's up to you.
Kind of a long one.
Yeah,
it's in the board packet. It's public. It's not like anything is being withheld.
Right. I agree. So if there are no further questions, may I have a motion?
I will make a motion. We approve item number 10.5, Resolution 21-07, Education Protection Account.
In a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Makla,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
and President Paoli.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So the last item on the action item is board self-evaluation tool. And Trustee Babcock, if you just want to present, please. And
I guess I'm. So I guess you want me to just give a little background. I mean, this came around, I don't know how many years ago. And from our MIG training, it was really suggested that we have some kind of document to guide us and let people know, why we don't answer things at a meeting or why we can't talk about things that aren't on the agenda and how we can put things on agendas and on and on and on. So it's been a work in progress, and we have made a goal to each year revise that and make sure that it's current with what we are doing. And we've been working on it for a while, and it's gotten kicked around. But I think tonight it's just to make sure that we all have read it one more time and are okay with the edits that we did do this year.
great, thank you. Yeah, I think that this was on information and discussion in May. I believe it was in May, and it was just kind of massaging some of the language and making it more concise. So if there are any questions, or if there's no further questions, may I have a motion?
Oh, I guess I really talked about the governance handbook, not the, sorry, I was, So yes, this one, sorry, I totally went off topic. So it was more about, yes, massaging the language Trustee Snyder and I worked on after we had our workshop in January. Sorry, I got thrown when you called on me. I did.
Sorry.
Okay.
But you did address, because we were kind of evaluating those things that you mentioned. So I thought you were kind of on point. So no harm done. Vice President Makala?
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just going to make a motion. So if you had a question.
I was going to make a motion, but it's okay. But I first wanted to thank you guys again, because I do like the changes that you made. It does make it, I think, cleaner and easier to understand. So appreciate your time. And go ahead and make the motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to adopt the updated board self-evaluation tool as presented.
I will second.
Thank you. And roll call.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
and President Paley.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Very good. Thank you. So moving on to information and discussion, we have 11.1, which was on last week's meeting, in-person board meetings and in-person public comment. Just wanted to report out what was announced last week, just so that people are clear on what's happening and if there's any updates. So this is Superintendent Walker.
So again, our goal is that we are going to begin holding our public meetings with August 19th, our first board meeting of the new academic school year. Will be in room 306 at Fort Bragg High School. We are going to be following the public health orders, which means we're going to be asking folks to mask. And we'll go back to be live. We will still have the great Nate do his one chair production and live stream our meetings for us. I spoke with Nate yesterday, so we're still on point for that. But we will return to in-person meetings room 306 at Fort Bragg High School beginning August 19th, 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, I think the governor's executive order has been extended to September 30th. So do we still need to offer the board meeting that avenue where people can write into that email and we would read them as public comment, and then also include if someone came to the meeting for public comment?
So we did that even prior to COVID times. If folks had sent an email and asked it to be read into public record, we did it.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem continuing that. When the governor did extend that order through September, it meant that we could still do meetings like this, but it also meant that we would have to move into back to the Brown Act rules of if I'm going to have the meeting from my car because I'm traveling, then the agenda needs to be posted on my car and I have to open it up so that people can come into my car and be part of the public meeting. So returning to our normal venue in normal in-person ways makes the most sense right now.
Right. So yeah, exactly. That was the big part of the Brown Act that they want you to move back into. Okay. Because right now, none of us have our doors open at our homes or our offices or wherever we're located and letting people come in during the pandemic. So are there any other questions for this information? Trustee Babcock?
It's not a question, but I just made a note, and Renee and Diana, I just want to make sure that Renee has that public document form that we put together before we went out. I don't know if it's in a drive that Renee has, but if between the three of us, if we'll remember to get that to Renee prior to August 19th. Do you remember that form where the public could fill it out and then give it to Renee at the meetings?
It's in the president folder in the drive.
Okay, great. I'll take it off my to-do.
Well, I have to tell you, thank you for remembering those things, because I even though it's only been 15 months ago, there are things that are just out of my memory bank. So Thank you, Kathy.
And it probably does need to be revised because I think there's something on it I remember looking at that if there's a year on it. So I don't know who created that form. I just have a scanned copy in that drive. So we still may need to figure that out.
It's probably me, so I'll check.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, there's a lot of detail. I think I've only been president during the pandemic, so it's good. I've still need work on this venue, but then I'm gonna have to relearn some other protocols, during the meeting. So I'll be looking into that as well. So moving on to the next item is 10.1, which we moved from the action item, safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plan. So I don't know if you want to give it just
this is, there were two steps to getting the new ARP money, the American Relief Plan money, ESSER 3, also known as. And one of them was to submit assurances, and the other was to submit a template indicating that we either had a plan that met all of the requirements of the grant, or that we would be developing a plan that meets all the requirements of the grant. I sent the two documents that I felt combined did that. One was our local continuity and attendance plan, and also our CPP, the California COVID prevention plan. So those two documents together cover all of the requirements, and we had sufficient stakeholder input for both of them. So I expect that they will be accepted by CDE. On the off chance that there are any amendments that take place, the other option is you have a plan, but it needs a little bit of tweaking. And again, we have time to do that should they decide that it's not sufficient, but I believe it to be. And I just put this on the agenda in case, once I read all of the requirements, that I didn't feel like we had something in place, but I believe we do. So that's why we were able to pull it and put it in information and discussion.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for being proactive and hoping we don't have to do any amendments. So the next item, are there any questions for Wendy before we move on? Seeing none. The next item is board reports. Do we have anything to report since last week as board members? Seeing none. We're going to move on to advanced planning suggestions for future meetings. And I believe the only remainder from last meeting, I said I would bring up the special meeting date in November. So it was suggested November 2nd, and Vice President Maklick cannot attend, and Trustee Babcock was absent. So did we get any information if November 8th was an alternative for our admin, if that would be a better date for everyone? Because I don't believe I remember if Trustee Mattson or Trustee Snyder was available on the 2nd, which is a Tuesday. Are Tuesdays still bad for you, Scott?
No, Tuesdays are actually good for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll clear that up. Do we know if the admin would be available on the 8th?
We can make them available.
Okay. Do we know anyone's calendar on the 8th, if that would be, so we can all attend? It's hard
So the question is November 2nd or November 8th better? That's the question.
Okay. If you have your calendars.
And so I cannot attend on November 2nd.
I think November 8th would be better for me.
And that's a Monday.
Yes.
Does that, Trustee Snyder, it looked like you were are you looking?
No, I'm just looking.
Okay.
Sorry. It's so far out.
I know that's the thing it's great to be looking ahead and having a plan, but I know with kids, we all have kids and family, and something could change. So I know we want most trustees to be available, but and
it's going to be a presentation. It's not going to be approval of anything. So it's always great to have a quorum, but this is not asking for approval. This is really about showing you our data and giving you our first look at where we are post-pandemic. Well, we still might be in it, but at least back at school.
Trustee Babcock?
I am not, this isn't anything, about Mary not being available, but I would think we should do what is best for the staff. Mondays seem kind of like a bad day, but I guess Jerry said Tuesday or Monday was better anyway. Okay, so
what time would the meeting be?
When?
I'm sorry, what time would the meeting be? Would it be evening meeting?
It would be an evening meeting, so we could make it earlier. We could start at 5. It would be a special meeting, so you could start the meeting anytime you wanted.
I'm free either day, so I'll just mute.
Okay, and we could do the 8th. That's gonna be a weird week because that Thursday we're all off for Veterans Day, so it's a 3-day week, then a day off, then come back Friday, then off again.
Well, and just what I'm hearing, it sounds like it's better for 2 trustees on the 8th, but we still have 3 trustees that don't really know our schedule, but I'd hate to have one of us not be available. And if it's better for them to be on the 8th, I don't want to already know one's not available on the 2nd, because things do happen. And if we are still in COVID, the more people we know now that can make it would be my comfort. But I'm hoping that it's good with staff.
We can do the 8th. That'll be fine.
Okay. So we'll aim for that, November 8th, for the special 4 benchmarks. And it's about 4 days later. So hope that works out. And then the other, I just wanted to bring up, I did look at an old meeting in 2018-19, because I was trying to just really analyze the agenda and how we present information. And under acknowledgement, back then, they also used it to talk about something that was happening on a site. So it didn't have to come out at your board report. So they would say there was, Fine Arts Night at Dana Gray. It was a great event and well attended. And so just wanted to just consider that being another option at the beginning of the meeting, now that we've kind of moved our board report at the end, which normally is maybe items that we want to bring before the, if during board report between us as board members, this is the only time we can talk, but we can make those other announcements to make our board report shorter at the beginning, where we would have public present to acknowledge and showcase the district. So I just wanted to put that out there and back then that's where they also spoke on those items. So are there any other suggestions or advanced planning that we need to address today?
Diana, I have a clarifying question. I'm sorry to interrupt. The board's decided to do a special meeting on November 8th. Did you set a time?
6 o'clock, it looks like Jerry's suggesting. On November 8th, a Monday, for benchmarks. Any other comments from board members before we get to housekeeping? Okay, seeing none, the housekeeping is June 25th is Juneteenth holiday, which is going to be observed at all the sites. July 4th is Independence Day holiday. And then our first day back, return to on campus in person, is August 18th, back to school. And then our first regular board meeting in person in room 306 is August 19th at 6 p.m. And our next regular board meeting is August, again, 19th at 6 p.m. And we do need to return back to closed session to complete 2.4. So may I have a motion to adjourn and the regular meeting and reconvene the closed?
Make a motion, we adjourn the open session and return to closed session.
In a second?
I'll second. Are we using the same link as the other closed session?
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you, Nate, for filming.
Okay, Jerry, I guess there's no one opposed to this. Thank you so much, everyone, for your work.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.
Night.